Hey, it's Bitty Penny. Welcome back to my channel. So we are better together. This video is really dedicated to inclusivity, including everyone. And it's just about love. And I'm going to share just some of my personal reflections on how significant today is. And I'm going to make 2 cards. So let's do this. All right. I had to have the stamp. I got it in a haul from a D stash, and it's a Prima, I think it's called Afro Girl, if I'm not mistaken. But I had to have it because she represents my daughter and my nieces and inclusivity. So I'm so glad we're starting to get more representation in the crafting world of diversity. I've really seen it this last year, and I'm really, really excited about that. So I used embossing ink, and then I used VersaFine Onyx black ink twice to make sure I would get a great impression, because I'm using Hero Art's handmade watercolor paper for this card, which has a lot of texture. It is my favorite watercolor paper, especially for projects like what I'm making today. So this is a 5x7 card, and that paper comes 5x7, by the way. And I wanted to make a card that would be like frame worthy, so that whoever I give it to, which likely will be my daughter or one of my nieces, then they could easily get it framed and hang it on the wall. So yeah, I make cards like that sometimes. So I'm just watering this up with my Prima watercolors, and I'm going to chit chat a little bit. So I'll never forget when my daughter was 3. I put her in ballet, and one night we were relaxing and, bringing the volume down for a 3-year-old before bed, and we turned on some Misty Copeland ballet. And she looked at me and was like, wow, that could be me one day, with bright eyes. And in that very moment, I feel like I better understood what representation means. It is vitally important that people have representation. This is something I've taken for granted as a Caucasian my entire life, because I've always had representation living in America. And as a mother to biracial children, and as a wife to a very handsome, dark-skinned man, it's such an interesting place to be, because I've seen the struggle firsthand of racism. I know it exists. It exists all over Europe, America, Asia, everywhere. It's not just an American sickness, it's everywhere. We've experienced it firsthand in other countries. So it's always interesting for me, because I know that my understanding of the struggle only scratches the surface. Me and my husband have been together for over 15 years, and I see it, I know it. I refuse to perpetuate it in any conscious way, but at the same time, there's a knowing inside of me that I'll never know. And the best thing that I can do is listen and love, and, like I said, intentionally never perpetuate. And even for my children, we went to an MLK march last year with my mom, and I cried. I almost cried the whole time, just knowing that there would be things that I couldn't explain to them, and there is no explanation for racism. And yeah, it was emotional. What I can do is love them the way they deserve to be loved. And, that's all we're supposed to do in this life is love one another. So, regardless of skin, regardless of gender or gender identification, it doesn't matter. We're just supposed to love one another. So if ever there is a cause that you will see Biddy Penny stand up for and voice her opinion about, it is definitely this one. So, my children are blessed because they have representation in their family that is impeccable and amazing. Like their grandparents give them an example of what it means to be a Black man and a college professor and a musician and an actor and someone so full of love. And their grandmother does the same. And, they have aunties who are doctors, and they have a ton of representation from loved ones in their family that show them that you can do anything. And I love that. I'm so glad. But we do need to consciously show children that this world is not going to hold them back because of their skin color. My children can't understand racism. They're 10 and almost 8. And they're just like, yeah, we don't get it. And that's because they've been raised in a family with love. And they've never, they've been raised as rainbows. That's what I always call them, my little rainbows. And so I do believe racism is taught. And the best thing that we can do is love one another and hope. I always, since I was a little girl, I've never understood racism. I've never understood I've always been intrigued by everyone almost. And so, now I'm in my 40s and I'm like, we haven't figured this out yet. Like, I knew this when I was like 5. Like, why are we still struggling with this? And that's what I get from, Dr. Martin Luther King. I was listening to his book a few months ago. I like to make sure that I have plenty of different voices in my life. And so I was listening to his book on Audible. And there's just so much truth and that speaks to my heart and speaks to my faith, which as a Christian, it's like, yeah, it just seems so simple. So I can't understand the struggle. I just really can't. But anyways, let's get back to the card making. But I was so amped to make a card in honor of this because to me, I guess this is my soapbox, is that justice, equality, and love should be given to everyone. Even now, like with the current events, how could this not be a more perfect time to love one another? Because I could feel if I let hatred come into my heart, how it would harden. And so even though I know there's people who are consciously perpetuating racism, I'm not going to hate them because that will just make me sick. That'll make me worse. But somehow we have to enlighten them? I don't know what that answer is. All right, really, I'm going to go back to the card making, but y'all can see what I'm doing, right? So I had stamped out those rainbow people, and that was going to be the inside of my card, and I totally wasn't feeling it. So I thought it was beautiful, so that's going to be the front of a different card. I grabbed this stamp set from Fun Stamper's Journey, and that just is kind of drawn in a closer, like, illustrative fashion as the front of the card. And so that's why I chose that. And then I brought in this reverse confetti stamp set, which I think is called My Tribe. I love this stamp set. Reverse confetti, to me, has some of the best sentiment stamp sets, and I do love the illustrator that draws like their bears and stuff, so I'm a big fan. I don't have a ton of their stamps, but I am a big fan. All right, so now what I've been doing in the video is I don't mind mixing like this little bit of orange and pink. Like, I don't mind if a little bit of pink gets in that orange stamp pad, but I don't want, blue or green. So one thing that y'all might have been noticing that I was doing when I stamped out the rainbow people is like I would do, and kind of like I'm doing here. Let me use this as an example. I'm doing my blue and my green, and I know I haven't gotten the whole stamp all 100%. But what I'm going to do is clean off my stamp and then bring in the yellow. And then that way I don't get blue or green ink in my ink pad, but I can get all three colors on there. Now, of course, you could use a sponge dauber. You could do this different ways. This is just the way I chose it. You could mask, you could do all kinds of stuff, but this is just how I was going about it today. So I'm a little behind in my card making videos, and I was really trying to catch up this week, and I was like, I'm going to make really simple cards, but still give people like 3 videos this week. Well, if this is any indication, I'm failing. But I love these 2 cards that I made today, so I'm not done yet. Let's assemble them. I'm going to use some liquid glue to glue down this watercolor base. These cards are super thick, heavy, such a nice weight, very substantial. And by the way, I had painted her yesterday and let her dry overnight, so that way it would be nice and flat. And then I just love this pattern paper. So y'all probably saw while I was talking that I brought in 2 sheets of pattern paper from my stash, and I wanted to use them in the background here. These are exactly the right size. So this is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. For my second card, I was talking to my daughter while I was cutting, and I obviously got it wrong. And then this is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. Just in case you want similar measurements, if you're making a 5 by 7 card, that's what my matted layers are in this card. And for me, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to get enough of that background paper to show through. So I really love how that card turned out. Super sweet. Okay, and this is my other card. This card is really cool because I feel like it's genderless and that it could be used for lots of different reasons. But I don't have a card like it in my stash at all, anywhere. I've never made a card like this. And so for me as a card maker, I've literally made thousands of cards because I used to donate over 500 a year. And to say this is the first card like this that I've made, that for me kind of hits a new stride, and I love that. So I'm happy that I decided to turn this into its own card. So I didn't get a great impression there when I stamped that "You're Not Alone," and I decided to use some yellow. And I like the way that worked out, even though it was offset and not lined up. Okay, these two poor pieces of paper, well, I'm not throwing them away and I'm not scrapping them. I'm going to make it work. They are not cut right. I have no idea what I cut these at. What I am happy about is that the way they lined up, so all of those colors there in the middle line up, and it just looks really cool, very professional. So I did have to cut my bases down that I had originally cut because they weren't going to work, but I waited until after I did some ink smushing. Again, I'm doing this kind of like how I did my inking. I'm just going to do my warm colors together and get those on my paper, and then I'll come in and add the others. So here I'm just kind of blurring the intense lines because I don't want any streaks. I want it to be very watercolor-esque, if you will, and I didn't want any harsh streaks on these pieces of paper. So then I did the blue and green. And these had almost too much water. My sprayer, I really need to get a new sprayer. That distress sprayer is not great. All right, so I'm bringing in a sentiment. And these I'm keeping pretty simple. What I did with these as well is because they were pretty warped, I ran them through my die cutting machine without any plates. I mean, just, with standard plates, of course. And I ran it through 5 or 6 times and then finished straightening it all out with my hands, which totally made me think of when I was a teenager and there was vending machines in our school and we had to flatten out our dollar bills. Oh my goodness. I want to say one more thing. I grew up in a very small town with no diversity. And I'm a person who loves diversity. So guys, there is hope. I have so much hope in my heart. All right, these are the 2 cards. Yay, I really like them. I hope you do too. Let me know down below. This is just so different, so cool. I really like it. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. And if you hit that like button, it really helps me. Thanks. Bye.